If you are an ancient king and there's an invading army attacking your northern neighbor, laying siege to their capital, what would you do to prepare, knowing that they will likely be taken and you are next on the list to be conquered? Join us today as we talk about Hezekiah and his plans. Welcome to Digging Deeper, the podcast where we talk about the geography, archaeology, people, cultures of the lands of the Bible. By exploring these areas, we hope to broaden your understanding of the biblical narrative. You can learn more about all of us here at appianmedia and watch our free video series at appianmedia.org. Our sponsors for today's episodes are CEI Bookstore and Sacred Connections. We will be more than happy to tell you a little bit more about them later in our show. So Barry, we had an episode that we talked about Lachish.
Right.
So who was this Hezekiah? When did he reign? Tell me about him.
Well, Hezekiah was one of the kings of Judah. He's kind of known among students of the Bible as one of the good kings. He was one of the kings that really we can look up to and learn a lot of lessons from. He was the 12th descendant from Solomon. He was the son of a gentleman named Ahaz, who was also king. He was the father of Manasseh, who, oddly enough, as good as Hezekiah was, Manasseh was kind of the opposite. He was also the great-grandfather of Josiah, another one of the kings that we're familiar with. He ruled around 716 to 687 BC, and he was in power and witnessed firsthand the capture of Sargon II from Assyria of his northern neighbors, the northern kingdom of Israel, in 722 BC. So he was fully aware of what the Assyrians could and would do. He knew the Assyrians were coming. And as you know, the Assyrians, they captured the northern kingdom of Israel, but they were coming for Judah as well. And so Hezekiah fortified the walls around Jerusalem, tried to make it harder, more difficult for the Assyrians to get in. And he also, for instance, in 2 Kings, the 20th chapter, verse 20, it says that he made the pool and the conduit and he brought water into the city. Normally, water from the Gihon Spring would have flown down an ancient channel and would have funneled into the Kidron Valley. And so the inhabitants of Jerusalem would have grown crops and things in the Kidron Valley, and this water from the Gihon Spring would have watered that entire area. And so when the Assyrians came, this would have given them access to the water because a lot of the water was flowing outside the city walls, into the crops. And so Hezekiah asked the question, why should the Assyrians have this water, when they come? Because that would have been one of the first things that the Assyrians would have done when they arrived, was if they cut off the water supply, that would have put them in a real pickle there,
real quick
in the city. And so the first thing he wanted to do was capture that water. And so one of the things he did was he built a tunnel under what we commonly refer to as the Eastern Hill to redirect the water from the Gihon Spring to the western side of that hill and let it pool up inside the city walls. So that not only gave the inhabitants of Jerusalem access to that water, but it also kept the Assyrians from getting it as well.
That's very strategic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a brilliant idea. About 2 or 3 times a year, I try to lead a tour over to Israel, and one of the questions I get is, can we walk through Hezekiah's tunnel? And the answer is yes, we can. It is a really, really interesting thing to walk through it, and there's always some things that you need to know before you do that. It's something that I always encourage my people to try to do because it is such an interesting thing to see and experience. And it's interesting, too, from just a time element, because this tunnel was dug 2,700 years ago for the sole purpose of redirecting this water. And guess what? 2,700 years later, water still flows through this tunnel.
I wish we could say the same about some of our infrastructure.
That's exactly right. They were much better with this back then than we are today.
I want to take a moment and talk to you about our sponsors. During the entire history of Appian Media, we have had several companies reach out and offer to sell our products, and one of the first to contact us was CEI Bookstore. CEI Bookstore has been in business for over 70 years, and they are a nonprofit religious bookstore, and they are a retail supplier of books, Bibles, church supplies, and other religious resources. They're located in Athens, Alabama, but they serve customers all across the U.S. If you're in need of any of their wonderful products that they offer, we encourage you to reach out to them through their website at truthbooks.com. Sacred Connections is a safe online space for Christians to connect and build meaningful relationships. With a focus on community and channels dedicated to various interests and events, there is something for users at every life stage. Right now, if you download the app, use the code diggingdeeper to receive a special discount for all the listeners of the Digging Deeper podcast. We invite you to start your journey by going to their website today and learning more. Their address is sacredconnections.com. Now, back to the show.
Okay, Dan, you and I have been fortunate enough to have walked through Hezekiah's Tunnel a number of times. In fact, we've actually drug our wives and children through the tunnel as well. Some of them were anxious about going and excited about going, others less so. With that being said, we got them all through there. So take a few minutes here and describe to me, give me some specifics about the tunnel first.
Okay.
So,
well, if you go to the city of David, the original city of David, not the modern city of Jerusalem, it's actually south of the Ottoman walls. It's on the east side, and that's where Gihon Spring is. Right. And it has, it doesn't flow continuously, it kind of pulsates. Right. So the flow changes over the course of the day or the month. But this tunnel goes from the Gihon Spring, and it runs about 1,800 feet long. It's up to 150 feet underground, and it's only about 25, 26 inches wide.
So pretty narrow.
It is. If you're claustrophobic, you can get through it, as I've had family members do, but they did not appreciate it. But at the end, it definitely gets a lot taller because it starts off pretty short. I'm ducking to get under it. And then by the end, it's got, an 18-foot ceiling. With all that change, though, the water level only goes down 1 foot in that 1,800 feet. So it's got a very slow gradient.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know how they were able to do that.
Yeah.
But it only drops a foot as you walk that third of a mile.
Yeah.
It ends in the Pool of Siloam.
From the New Testament.
From the New Testament.
Sure.
There are two pools it drops into, the one that we originally thought was the Pool of Siloam, and now the one that we know is the Pool of Siloam. And then this was first described in modern times in the 1600s. Okay. Somebody had mentioned it, but it was full of debris. And so it was later explored in 1838 by Edward Robinson. After that, someone was walking through in 1884 and they slipped, they fell, and when they happened to look up, they said, it looks like there's words on the wall. That turned out to be the Siloam inscription. And we know about that. It was later illegally removed from the wall in 1890. The Ottomans who were in power at the time said, oh, we need that back. So they went and got it, and it's now in the Istanbul Museum. It was a description of actually how the tunnel was made. It is one of those where we will, put up a little placard after we do something great. They did the same thing. Yeah. And it described two teams of workers starting at opposite sides and working towards each other, listening for the sound of the pickaxes. And if you actually go to where the meeting of the builders was, you can actually see the tunnel does a 90-degree turn where they intersect.
Yeah. Now, you've talked about the length of it, and you've talked about how narrow it is, stuff like that. What's it like to walk through it, and how long does it take, and what's that whole experience?
It all depends on if you're claustrophobic, what the experience is like. Also depends on how many people are ahead of you.
Okay.
Because there's no turning around. It's a one-way.
Okay.
And when you go in, you got to just have the mentality that we're going to get through this. Without a headlamp, it is pitch black because you're underground.
Yeah.
My children, the second time we went through, they decided they were going to do it without their headlamps. And so they turned them off and walked through.
Really?
So some people do it.
Wow.
I've heard some people getting through in 5 minutes because there was nobody ahead of them and they just booked it.
Wow.
Normally, it's going to take you 15, 20 minutes to get through. When you first step in, you have water, cold water. It's a little shocking.
This is spring water.
Yes.
Right, that's right.
Spring water, it's cold. It's up to your mid-thigh. And the floor used to be pretty even, but it's starting, you have to wear shoes because it's starting to get some pock marks where the different type of rock is eroding.
Okay.
So you might step in some little tiny holes. You got to duck. If you don't, you're going to bang your head. And you got to suck in your gut if you're getting a little bit bigger like I was. You don't make it through quite as easy. But it's fascinating because as you walk, you can see all the pick marks of the axes. And they all go in one direction, but after you get to the meeting point, you notice they all slope in the other direction. So you can actually see evidence from the building from that many years ago.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, you mentioned when you got in, it was like up to your mid-thighs. Is it like that the whole way, or?
No, that's just really at the front part.
Okay.
And then it drops down below your knees for most of the rest of the trip. They tell you have to go through shoes, you have to have a flashlight. But to be honest, one of the times I was planning on going, my luggage was lost. So I just tied my shoes and socks around, put them around my neck, and I used my cell phone's flashlight to get through.
Wow. Okay. Hezekiah's tunnel does show us the ingenuity of man and how much was accomplished during ancient times. We still don't fully understand how they were able to accomplish building it, but it has stood the test of time for over 2,700 years. As amazing as it is to see and walk through, we are reminded that it likely was displeasing to God for Hezekiah to make it, as he was relying on himself instead of God. Isaiah 22 in verse 11 states, "You also made a reservoir between the two walls for the water of the old pool, but you did not look at its maker, nor did you have respect for him who fashioned it long ago." Hezekiah gave tribute to Assyria to break the siege, but the Assyrians still came. It wasn't until he realized he couldn't do it alone, and he laid out the letter from Sennacherib before God and prayed to God, that Assyria was sent back to their country without taking Jerusalem. We need to learn from Hezekiah that we can fortify walls, dig tunnels, and prepare, but it is only God who gives us a victory in life. If we depend on ourselves, we will fail.
Digging Deeper is a production of Appian Media. We're a non-profit media production company that is 100% crowdfunded. If you're interested in learning more about how you can support Appian Media so we can continue to create more great and free content, visit us at appianmedia.org/listen. If you'd like to contact Barry or I, you can reach him at barry.britnell@appianmedia.org, and you can reach me at dan.kingsley@appianmedia.org. We would love to hear from you and answer any questions that you might have. I'd like to once again give a special thanks to the entire Appian Media team who are working hard, doing their part to make this a success. Join us next time as we talk about how important fingernail-sized impressions of clay can be to our faith, as we discuss Beulah and seals. Until then, thank you for joining. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Digging Deeper.